Growing up, I drank the Kool-Aid of my parents' and community's beliefs. I made that belief system more important than my own needs and happiness. Looking back, I can't fault anyone for that, not even quote-unquote God. I now have clarity in decisions and choices I make. I'm fully engaged in finding joy in my life, in my own way, without the influence and construct of others. This is an uplifting discussion from there to now. We are back. Oh, is that echoey sound there? Oh, thank God. I can't stand that.
Little echo.
Sound. So we're back. Hello, Alan. We are going to approach fear again, part 2, but we're really going to be focusing more on the outcome of fear. Fear shows up as a marker. What's the outcome? And because Sean really has a very great example of fear to fun, he is going to play a video for us.
Are you going to let me talk in this episode?
Yes, you're going to talk
really.
in this episode a little
Actually,
bit.
I didn't even cue you. Just kidding.
Sorry, I'll keep the microphone off. My bad.
Okay, so we have this video. I'm going to say what's happening in the video in case you're listening to this and not watching this on YouTube, although you can see our lovely faces on YouTube if you want to watch us there. Sean is sitting in a semi-fetal position with a large man strapped behind him.
Hold on a second.
No. I'm not done.
Wrong
I'm not
video.
done.
Let me change that.
I'm not done. He has goggles on his face, and there is a scenery of clouds and the abyss. And right now, he's going to hit play. We're going to hear wind, and we're not going to hear very much besides when they leap out of the plane, he starts screaming really loudly. There is tears coming out of his face, and now he's showing jubilant emotions, and he looks super comfortable with that man strapped on his back. Now, Sean, what's your interpretation?
That's me jumping out of an airplane.
Excitingness.
That's fantastic.
So what was that fear like?
Yeah, was there fear?
There was actually not fear, which was weird. So we get up in the plane. The plane is just a small. There was enough room for 3 of us in there, me and the other diver, and then the pilot. But when he opened the door, put my foot on the little platform, and then he's like, "Roll out when you're ready." But there was no depth. I couldn't see the ground. Like if you're standing on a chair or on top of a building, that was something that caused me some fear. But in this situation, I did not have the fear for some reason. It was like the height. I don't like heights. The height thing was not an issue. And also being able to, the only way I can tell that we were actually falling was looking at the horizon. So I'd have to look sideways to see the horizon change. Whereas if I'm looking straight down from 15,000 feet, it didn't appear like the ground was coming towards me really quick.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Exciting.
And so it was fun. So when people talk about the fear of skydiving, I say, yeah, I hate walking on rooftops, but I'd jump out of an airplane again, no problem.
Yeah, and you bring up a fascinating point because we were just talking about in the last episode the visual components, right? And looking down, the emotion was different than to look at the horizon. There was different sensations or perceptions.
Which actually, it's weird because if you stand on a rooftop and you look down, then my knees would get weak and I'd get scared. But if I'm on a rooftop at the horizon, I'm fine.
It's opposite. Yeah, fascinating.
The duality
that's
of
kind
life.
of like
life. Yeah.
what you're supposed to be doing when you're rappelling, apparently, as well. You're not supposed to be looking down when you start rappelling. You're supposed to look straight ahead.
Oh,
or at your
interesting.
feet, right? Because when you belay,
Yep.
when you're
and
rappelling,
rappelling off
you have to
and down.
be focused, too, on what your feet are landing on and what you're pushing off on.
Yeah, it's interesting when we consider it's what we're focusing on that allows us new access, right? Gives us access to the new resources, emotional states or resources that we have that move us more positively. So, which I think is fantastic. If we have the willingness to question our own perceptions and put those into a resourceful way, right? Or how can we access this to get more of what we want more readily or more quickly?
Right.
And what would it take to be more courageous? Like, we discuss or talk about the fear, but it's really the component of its opposite or the
Right.
polarity. What is it we do want to experience?
Uh-huh.
Because most people don't talk about it. We hear the word fearless.
Uh-huh.
Well, what is that?
What is that?
That's the absence of an emotion or the absence of fear.
Yeah, we've just
Right?
already talked about we need to be embracing our emotions.
Yeah, we want to be embracing our emotions. So what if we were to embrace the emotion that we call an absent emotion? Fearless is a non-existent state. Like, even to hear it, you're like, well, fearless, what is there?
Yeah, but then when you're experiencing fearlessness, that means you're really experiencing not that intensity of emotions that we talked about, how delightful they can be.
Or they can be. But what if we give definition? So instead of, for example, let's try on. So instead of a fearless, what if it were a courageous opportunity? Right? What if in a moment somebody's where they might have said, oh, I'm being fearless. No, you're not being fearless. You're being something. But the beingness isn't fearless because that implies an absence of a state or an absence of an emotion. You have an emotion, most likely courageous,
Yeah.
brave, determined, right? Some emotional state is kicked in. It's not that you're fearless. That puts our perspective on the fear, where we want to say, well, the perspective of courage or bravery or determination, right? Those become a lot more powerful in moving us towards the experiences we want to have.
Yeah.
So why not build it the way we want it? Right? We often hear about and talk about the skydiving experience. It's just a powerful experience because it's not a common experience, right? We don't have a predictable nature to what it is. We can really fully enjoy it as a singular experience. And I think that's where it becomes really powerful
Okay, do you have an example?
of
That.
of me and my life, an example of an experience.
Story
Well,
time.
I don't really have a parachuting experience, but I'm an avid outdoorsman.
Right.
And I'm an avid hunter. I hunt and fish, and there were two opportunities, and it could be I've just reframed them. But I was elk hunting one year, and I really get into calling in the elk and verbalizing with them and mimicking the behaviors. So I was on the hill, and I'm mimicking the behaviors of an elk. And I'm up against a tree because I've got
So
to
what
remain
you're saying
hidden.
is you're pretending to be
I'm
a
pretending
female
to be a
and
female
doing
elk, and I'm
a
drawing in-
sexual call
Yes,
to a
I'm-
male elk. Okay, thanks for putting that in more detail.
There we go. And the beauty of that experience in that duality was I got to call in a mountain lion. So through the trees, I saw something moving and sneaking up on us. And this cat, mountain lion, comes out of the bushes. And then, of course, it's got the little cat tail jiggle where it's just back and forth like it's on the hunt.
Right.
And it sits down looking for this elk. Now, I happen to be about 20, 25 yards from this cat. And it's a pretty good sized cat. Now, I will say I had sensations in my body that some people like. For me, it's more an adrenaline. I'm more of an adrenaline junkie probably than a fear factor. But it was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And the reality of what could have played out didn't hit me until I was actually talking with my buddies around the campfire. And their conversations were, a cat can jump that 20 yards in about a second. You could have been cat dinner and whatnot. And to me, it was like, no, this was really a great experience. Like, I got to sit there with a mountain lion. It was sitting, I'm sitting, and it's looking towards me, not at me. And I'm looking at it. And so that was a great experience. Of course, the second it knew I was there, it was like, okay, I got to leave. I'm not supposed to be here. And it took off. Excuse me. But that experience, and as you asked me about it, it's like, that's really interesting. I was more excited about the experience. But when I took it back to the campfire and I was talking with my buddies, they were very upset Like they were more fearful. And in fact, they wanted to change their hunt strategy for the next morning based on the proximity of this animal. And me, I was like, no, I want to go back and see if I can see it again. So, and I think that brings a really powerful point to perspective, right? Our expectation of, in the moment, I was perceiving something entirely different. And when I encountered or shared that story and that encounter with my buddies, they perceived it entirely different. And then moving to the perspective of, now what do I expect the next day to be? I had an anticipation. I was excited to go. They were absolutely not excited to go, right? They were having fear of an experience they had never had.
And it was the unknown.
And there's that unpredictability, the uncertainty, right? They couldn't predict, would they be able to go out, be on this mountainside and not have that experience? Because they wanted to not have that experience. So it's very fascinating as we talk about it. What do we allow to influence us when we're thinking about a fearful opportunity, or is it an opportunity to show our true courageousness? Is it presenting us an opportunity to go, okay, I can be brave and enjoy the emotions of brave and courageous, rather than the linguistic structure, like fearless, right? That it's just, we're ignoring what we actually have as a resource anytime we're taking it away. And I think it becomes very powerful if we think about it in that way, right? We want to have those emotions, but let's identify it for what it really truly is.
Right.
Rather than fear or fearless. Okay, I might have a fear, but what if I bring courage to the table? What if I bring bravery to the table? What if I bring determination, right? Or commitment? Like this could change the actual experience.
Commitment's a fascinating word. It scares me sometimes.
Ooh, scares or excites,
Ooh, maybe it does excite me.
right? Like
I guess the excitement, or I guess the trepidation that comes with the word commitment is because I know when I commit to something, it is a commitment. So there's a lot of first processing and evaluating if this is the direction I'm going to go. Because once I make up my mind, man, do I fucking do it.
right, you go.
I go
all
big.
In. Yeah, go big, go home.
All in.
Yeah, no, but that's the point. And it was funny, you used a different structure of language, right? Scared. Well, what's the difference between scared and fear? Like, I'm curious if you have a different sensation with scared than you do with fear. Because scared could be more present moment emotion.
Right. Not so long term.
Fear, more of a structure of expectation.
Oh.
Is the way I'm thinking about it. So, but I'm curious, and I often ask people when they give me different emotional labels,
Right.
what is that label? What's the difference between scared of a commitment, well, or fear of commitment? We've heard them all. Or excited to be committed, courageous to be committed. I'm brave in commitment. Like, doesn't that change that experience or that expectation?
Yeah, you're right, because I'm basing off of previous experiences where I committed to something that I didn't thoroughly evaluate that
There we go.
did not turn out in the way that I wanted it to.
There we go. Yeah. The considering all
So
our
you just
options.
gotta like cast that all off and just approach all new commitments with a fresh mind and a fresh perspective.
Yeah. Well, and if we think about, we bring our perspective has a little bit of an expectation factor outside of now. Our perception is in the now. How do we perceive? How are we bringing in the information?
Right.
What are we carrying into this experience? Now, if I'm carrying courage, bravery, determination into that experience, it's going to have a different outcome
Yeah.
than if I attempt to bring in the old fears or the old scares or the old unknowns, uncertainties, because every moment if we really stop and think about it, every moment is presenting us with new information.
Right.
We either can focus on what we've had, or we can realign our perceptions and predictions, or our perceptions and I just lost the word.
You wanted to say predictions, but why did you stop
Not
yourself?
predictions, perceptions, and
Predilections. Just kidding. I just wanted to
damn it,
derail you.
predictions,
I derailed you.
perceptions. But we if we bring our perception into with the positive courage, bravery, now we have a different experience
Yeah.
in our now moment. We don't experience it different in time.
Uh-huh.
We experience our expectations differently in time. But our experience, how we code and give meaning to that ongoing experience, is in now moments.
Yeah.
Then we maintain that, right?
Right.
So if we were to begin, even with the little things, where we recognize, oh, this once may have brought a fear or scared feeling, but what if I just embraced my own courage?
Mm-hmm.
In this now moment, how would that change the experience I'm having?
Right.
What if I just right now experience the bravery that I have as my core sense of beingness in this now moment? How would that change that now moment? Like that could be a really powerful shift in perception. So now somebody could go, okay, now my perspective is here's what life would be. So what would happen to all that old fear or those old scared? Would we be able to still maintain and keep those emotions, or would they start to transition naturally on their own?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not saying whether we should or shouldn't. It's a matter of what about exploring with the concept?
Yeah.
What if we were to experiment? Well, like what could happen? What might happen? And what would life look like in that case?
Right.
Right? So, which I think is fascinating to think about.
So jump in,
It gets
do
you
it,
thinking, huh?
trust, faith.
Oh no, jump into experience. Like if everything's showing up, and if you stop and consider the experience in a mindful way.
Yeah.
Right? We hear them talk about mindfulness, but what does that mean? Mindfulness being, am I completely aware of the information that would lead me in the direction of where I want to go, right? We're talking about magic and manifestation and having a visual representation of what we want. But what about evaluating it?
Mm-hmm.
Every experience is bringing us enormous amounts of information.
I agree with you to a point.
Yeah.
But I think that there's too much being in our head and processing that starts to derail us also. And so this is when I, again, bring in the metaphysical concepts that we really need to shift from our head into our heart. And we really need to start tuning into our heart center, because we got to get out of all of this processing, all of this thinking, all of this information, because we can analyze. And I find that it just literally derails us even further, and we get off course, and then it literally stops us in our tracks, and then we definitely don't go anywhere or do anything, because then we're in analyzation mode.
No, beautiful point. Here's the point, and I think that was a beautiful point. When I'm trying to be, and I'm going to use that word very consciously, trying to be fearless, I'm literally outside of my heart space.
Mm-hmm.
I have no awareness to what emotion I'm having.
Right.
Courage happens where?
In the heart.
In the heart.
Yeah.
So if I bring the heart space as the expectation to the experience and then bring in the experience, now I've led with the heart.
Yeah.
Which
is so important. Why is it important to lead with the heart, though? I feel like this is something people are like really lost to, because I find that our heart center is where our God center is. This is our truth. This is where we can totally rely on our intuition. This is our internal guidance system, our heart center. And so we think that it's our head. We think it's our analyzation and processing all of that. And it's really our heart center. So we have to be in a practice on a daily basis basis to be more into our heart center, to really truly feel and tune in to what's right for us. And does this feel good to me? Do I feel what lights me up? Does it bring me joy? Is this bring something in? I think that's the true indicator and marker of whether we will know if that's the direction we should be taking or not.
I think there's a lot of power to that idea. I would, again, going to that concept of expectation to experience. If I expect and lead with my heart, I'm expecting this to have a very courageous outcome.
Mm-hmm.
I'm bringing the courage to it, whereby activating my neurological system to find the information that validates the heart space I brought to it. Instead of counting on the experience to produce the emotion,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to intend and bring the emotion to the experience.
Right.
That's where I think the power comes. If I'm
Emotion
saying,
and feelings.
I want to bring my feeling, I'm coming into this emotion because I'm going to be the most courageous person I can in this situation. I want to access the information from a courageous perspective so that I can apply it and then have the experience and my perception of how good it feels to demonstrate my actual ability, my gift in those moments. And I think that that's true presence.
What would be a good tool, though, to access the courage?
Well, I think one of the things to recognize is, are we talking about an emotion and an intention, or are we absent the intention? So, for example, when we use the word fearless, right, we're saying it's an absence of an emotion. So we go into an experience with no emotional conclusion. So then we're forced into our heads to go, okay, what's all the information? And based on the experience I'm going to have, what do I experience? Well, without an emotion, fear and our ability to cope.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm going to experience. I'm going to experience the fear and how I coped in a less fear fashion.
Right.
But if I come in and I say, okay, I'm going to approach this in a very courageous way, and we could say loving way, I could say a very brave way, a very determined, a very focused, a very committed, a very whatever, but I have the state accessed in my heart. I'm leading my life by the heart, and I'm using validating information to validate and to expand on the intensity of my life experience. I want more passion in life. I better know what I'm bringing to the table.
Mm-hmm.
Fearless is bringing nothing to the table.
Right.
I'm bringing the absence of emotion to the table.
You know what's so fascinating is this morning I pulled a spirit animal card and it was a lion.
Oh, that is fascinating.
I know. Speaking of courage and the heart center.
That is very fascinating.
Right? I just love how things like that.
Synchronicity plays out for all of us everywhere.
Synchronicity is
It's awesome.
Awesome.
Yes, it's
Which
awesome.
the word synchronicity was coined by Carl Jung, and Carl Jung is really one of the founders of a lot of the concepts with neuro-linguistic programming.
Yeah, there's a lot of the base core concepts, right? Perception is projection, meaning what we perceive in the world is what we expect at some level. To
And
exist in the
expectation is
world.
powerful because that's part of manifesting,
Huge.
and we don't realize that.
Yes, it's huge. And if we haven't brought the state to it, right? So anything that is an absence of a heart space experience, and we're going into the experience, we're probably not leading with the heart because we don't even know what we want to bring in there. I don't know what I'm bringing to it. So I go about it haphazardly going, okay, what's going to happen here? What will I experience here? Well, if we take, based on the fear conversation, the fearless and go, okay, what would I feel if I were not having fear? And someone, well, that would be courage. Great. All right. I'm going into this next opportunity in a fully courageous state. And now we lead with our heart from that state of courage, or I'm going into a fully loving state. I'm leaving with the loving state. The experience is going to be wildly different than what we expect.
Right.
And when we have that experience, we now have a new point of predictability. We have a new experience. Now I can set new expectations based on new recurring experiences, and then notice how they replicate. Because those experiences begin to replicate on themselves.
Yeah.
The more we have it, the more our mind's triggered to look for opportunities to have those new experiences. So now we're living more courageously. We're living more bravely. We're living more lovingly. We're living more of whatever state we're intending when we go into those opportunities. But knowing and catching, so that first point of, do I know what I want to feel when I go into this? Do I know what I want my outcome to be? Do I know how I want to feel at that outcome? Like there's Tony Robbins, I think, talks about the emotional flooding of thought, right? Thinking about a future event you want to occur and flooding it with positive emotions or flooding it with the emotional state of achieving.
Right.
Well, what if we don't know what that emotion is? I got to find that. I've got to really dig into myself and go, wait a minute, how do I want my life experience to play out? And what emotions would be the most precious to me in that life experience? And why not just start to feel that? That's naturally going to lead conditions away from us that wouldn't feed it, right? We won't see things in the same light if we know what we're bringing into that experience, leading with our heart.
Yeah.
If I'm leading with the emotion, chances are I'm going to experience that.
So how do we become more heart-centered?
Well, we got to become more, well, in my mind, it's become more defined in what is heart-centered mean? What are the emotions? And I think everyone's uniquely individual on this.
Right.
What are my heart-centered emotions? What emotions really stand out as precious to me? If I want to be loving, I want to be kind, I want to be caring, I want to have deep levels of compassion and consideration, not only for myself, but for others. And I want to bring these experiences. I want to be courageous. I want to be committed. I want to be determined. And putting those down and saying, how do I live life fully aware of bringing this to my life? Going to meet friends. Oh, I want to be the most compassionate and caring person at coffee today with my friends. Here's what I'm going to do. That experience is going to manifest.
Right.
Right? So by definition, it's not just what we have at the outcome,
Yeah.
but also leading with the heart is saying, what emotions do I want to lead with? What emotion am I going to live my day by? What state do I absolutely commit to being in as I enter the day? And allowing the opportunities to come and go and notice how they either intensify or demonstrate ways that I can behave different to intensify the outcome of those experiences. Because now we're programming our minds to work for us. And this is finding what our hearts are searching for. Because I started where? In my heart. I start with my heart space. Here's what's going to drive me. But we've got so many structures of language that have non-emotion conditions.
Right. We've been conditioned in this culture to be emotionless and to run from emotions into fear emotions and to numb our emotions because emotions are bad. Like it took me my most adult life until about maybe 5 years ago to be able to openly cry in front of people.
Sure. Because owning your emotion,
because that's an emotion, and you show an emotion to someone, and that's a quote unquote weakness. But it's actually really healing, and it's actually authentic and real.
It gives us that point of authenticity, transparency, vulnerability that does allow someone to show up and be
that way
in relationship with us, or be in relation with us in that condition.
Yeah.
That becomes a very powerful state that I think a lot of people don't realize. We have to start with that. So being aware of it. Like I hear a lot of times, I'm in a loveless condition. Well, that's a focus on the absence of love. When did you decide not to bring love to the experience?
Right.
Right? The fearless. Well, what emotion do you want to bring to it? Like we get these emotionless. That one's even a giggle. Emotionless. Well, what emotion do you want to have? and what would happen if you took that emotion into the experience rather than expecting the experience to generate it for you. Because that's the truest meaning of entitlement to me. I expect my experiences to give me all the emotional feel-goods. When did I decide to live at that level of cause in experience? I'm going to bring the emotion I want to have into every experience I have. Now, that says I'm going to behave this way. So I bring it to the table. If it's not working in the way that I would like it to, I have the ability to leave the experience.
Right.
I don't have to wait. I don't have to force somebody or put borders, boundaries, right? That's the big word. Oh, they didn't respect my boundaries. No, boundaries are about me.
Yeah, you didn't respect your boundaries.
I didn't respect. That's the truth. Yeah, it's so true. I brought a boundary. I'm not respecting it because I'm still sitting here instead of getting up and going, oh, this is
Bye.
different than I expected. I'm going to go ahead and leave. I'll catch you guys another time.
Right.
Right? Because that really, I'm the one who's creating the experience. I brought the emotion in. So then if I experience the emotion, I can either choose to intensify it, just share gratitude, celebrate that, beautiful, I had that, great. Let's move to the next.
Right, because we don't have to hold on to things too. We don't have to hold on to those emotions because they passed through us or they occurred to us. Doesn't mean that we have to hold on to it. And I find that people do that too. An emotion will happen. There's an event that occurs, and then they hold on to it, and it can pass through you. It can move on. And in NLP, we talk about how you can hold on to the learnings of an experience and literally just move on. You don't need to retain it. You don't need to retain those emotions and those experiences per se. You can just ask for the learnings of it, and then literally transition to out of that, if that's what you desire. But that requires awareness, a lot of awareness.
It requires that mindfulness and the awareness of what is my experience, what am I bringing into it, and what is the experience itself sharing with me, so that I can then move on. Instead of coming into every experience expecting a certain outcome, because we lose flexibility in the experience if we're expecting a certain outcome.
Right.
I can't be fluid. I can't be reliant. I can't have the variety of opportunities present because I'm fixated, and that becomes another hindrance of getting more of what we want.
Yeah.
Right. But if we bring it in, we experience it and go, great, awesome. Now, where do I go to my next experience? Because let's be honest, we're experiencing life and every freaking flash of a second, every microsecond. And that's where life exists. So what emotion am I going to be? Yeah. Yeah. Well, and exactly. It brings in a whole nother metaphysical concept of what is now, right? But what I'm aware of is in some point a flash of my expectation in comparison to my experience.
Right.
And that's what we call the now moment. And then bring
plus
in the emotion.
Our unconscious mind operates in the now. Our unconscious mind doesn't understand time or linear time. Our unconscious mind only operates in this present given moment. It is not operating from the past or the present or any of that. So that if we had that awareness too, that would make our experiences that much more powerful. And then we would know how to tap into more of our unconscious programming.
Yeah. Yeah. Time is a structure in the unconscious level or that we use to organize memories, right? Or thoughts. We organize our memories and thoughts in a time orientation, right? We got past memories. We even got future memories, or we got past thoughts or future thoughts. What we expect to occur is a future memory or future thought, structured with the same information, same as past. But in our now moment, everything's relevant to incoming information as feedback. And if we don't bring the expectation to give the unconscious mind direction, we lose that opportunity. So knowing that we bring in the heartfelt condition as we lead that moment, the unconscious mind is going to make sure to align our information in a way that allows us that. It allows us to feel those emotions every step of the way through each experience. And that's what makes it really powerful. So, yeah, Yeah, recognizing time, that could be a whole nother
Subject.
conversation. Yeah. But being in the concept of being courageous, being brave, finding that emotion that you would want to feel opposite of fear or scared or anything that's outside of that, and then bring that to the table and then live the expectation, that perspective, and then notice what you perceive.
Yeah. And stepping into the unknown can be really exciting and
Very exciting.
adventurous.
Yes.
And will probably most likely guarantee growth and
A lot more passion in
reward.
the now. Absolutely, yes. No, it would be a really, really powerful if people were to start to lead with the heart.
Yeah.
First, define the emotion you want to bring into the experience. That's where it begins.
Oh my God.
Perfect.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone.
Thanks for having me.
okay.
Heather, that was awesome.
Thanks, Alan.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the I Drank the Kool-Aid podcast. Join us next time. If you'd like to participate in this discussion, get a hold of us at idrankthekoolaidpodcast@gmail.com. Now let me ask you, what flavor of Kool-Aid are you drinking?
This has been a production from a podcast studio.